I'm so tired.
And I'm so tired. I'm like, I even like thought today, I was like, do we need a script? Can I nap? And I was like, no, we need a script. We need something. And I was like, but nap.
I have been trying. Actually, the reason I've been watching Criminal Minds again is actually while I'm working at work. I just set up my phone, and as I'm designing away, I'm watching. But I'm trying to watch shows while I work. Otherwise, I constantly like flick through my social medias.
Yeah.
And one, it's very distracting, and it's almost addictive compulsive at this point. And I really don't like that. And two, it's to save the battery life on my phone.
Oh, that's smart.
So yeah, I've been watching Criminal Minds again, and it's been kind of fun watching it and then picking up on the little bits and pieces of serial killer pathology and all that stuff. And it's funny how much I almost feel like the Leonardo DiCaprio, like on the couch, him pointing at the TV meme whenever I see them mention something, or it's like, oh yeah, this was the MO of Jeffrey Dahmer or whatever. And I'm like, I knew that.
You're like, I know these things.
I know these things.
I've never watched an episode of Criminal Minds.
Really?
Yeah.
It's really good. I have this problem with shows. The first couple of seasons tends to be like, I had the same problem with Supernatural too, is that the episodes start out as these like one-off stories, mysteries, investigations, and then the next episode is a completely new one, you know, so on and so forth. That,
yeah.
But I find that once you get a couple of seasons in, it becomes more about the characters. And while I do love like character development and growth, sometimes I'm like, I'm really here just for the mysteries. Solve the mysteries, Scooby-Doo and the gang.
Right? Yeah, no, I get that. I should watch it though, because I mean, it's
good.
popular for a reason.
Yeah, it's good.
And it fits like the stuff I like.
I think with shows like that too, it's a little bit of, what's the term? Escapism, in the sense that like, yeah, they're FBI, yeah, they're cops, whatever. In real life, there's a lot of things they would never get away with.
Oh, yeah.
But that's okay. You suspend your disbelief so you can enjoy the good guys winning at the end.
Take a couple steps back and just let the like fiction go through.
Yeah, so that's been nice.
I've just been watching 90 Day Fiancé. There's 2 new seasons right now, and I'm in heaven.
It
is trash.
Is it?
Oh, it's awful. I love it so much.
Oh, yeah. Cody loves his like fucking dirty reality TV. Yeah, but you know what? Shows like that, it makes you feel a little better about your own life, I think.
Oh, 100%. Like, I can't judge myself when there's like, people like doing all that crazy shit. Going to Jordan and marrying a man the day that you met him. I won't do that.
Absolutely not.
So I must be doing okay.
You know, I'll do anything for love, but I will not do that. Oh, anyway, shall we get into it?
Yes.
Alrighty.
Let's get this party started.
Hello, everyone. I'm Charlotte.
And I'm Dina. Welcome to the Grim Curriculum.
Before we get right into this, just a heads up that we are planning another Grim Encounters episode, and we want to hear from you guys.
We are looking for stories about strange sightings, paranormal experiences, weird encounters, and more.
So if you do have a story you'd like us to share on the show, email us at thegrimcurriculum@gmail.com with the subject line Grim Encounters 6.
6.
Ooh,
I know.
I love a good Grim Encounters.
Oh my God, me too. Some of my favorite episodes. So if you are looking for some spooky tales, check out Grim Encounters 1 through 5, because I have had so much. Those are some of my favorite episodes that we've done.
I very much look forward to them.
I cannot wait to hear people's stories and just kind of see where we go, because it's, I mean, crazy shit happens.
Yeah, and also, I mean, yes, we're in September, but we'll be in October soon, and creepy, scary month is going to be upon us.
As far as I'm concerned, we're already in it. I'm all good. I'm ready.
There's a tickle of fall in the air, and I'm grabbing onto it. Speaking of spooky tales, though, we have a good one for y'all today.
We don't want to consider the next 2 episodes a series per se, but they do go hand in hand. This week we are covering the history of Slenderman, not only on the internet, but arguably throughout time.
Next week, we are going to be covering what is now known as the case of the Slenderman Stabbing, a story where 2 12-year-old girls attempted to murder their best friend.
Which sounds wild enough on its own, but wait until you hear the reason why.
If you haven't heard of this story already, it is going to blow your mind.
And the interesting thing about it is it was heavily reported, and all 3 parents from all 3 of the girls gave a ton of interviews.
Yes, there's a lot out there, and it's a fairly recent case in the grand scheme of things, considering we cover some very, very old-timey stuff. So you may have even heard it in the news as it was happening as well. I mean, we'll get into it, but it was pretty wild.
We were originally going to just talk about the murder. However, I went down some rabbit holes, as I often do. And the more I read about the history of the phenomena that is Slenderman, the more I wanted to share it, because my experience with old Slendy does go back to 2012. It was my first year of university.
Oh, God.
And it was suggested to me that I play the original Slenderman game very shortly after it came out.
I have also played it.
It scared the
spooky
shit out of me.
Yeah.
I read about the history back then. I saw like the quote unquote pictures. They're cheesy.
Oh, I mean,
they're cheesy as hell.
Yeah.
But I was sucked right into it. I was like, ooh, this is scary. Could he be real?
There was a lot on creepypasta that, it's like the logical side of your brain knows that this shit is not true.
Yeah.
Slenderman. What was that really freaking creepy? Oh, Momo.
Oh my God, yeah.
Like all of that really creepy stuff. Yeah, on one side of your brain, you're like, oh, this is not, whatever. It's just made up. It's stories, which it is. But on the other hand, it's like, I don't want to risk offending the deities of creepypasta.
Your brain's always going to have that kind of what if factor to it.
Yes.
Because I could be wrong, but what if I'm not?
Exactly. That's how I feel about Ouija boards.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, I saw the movie when it came out.
I have not seen the movie.
Don't bother.
Okay.
It's trash. I rewatched it for this and I was like, this is awful. Oh my God.
Because when did that come out? Not that long ago.
20. Hold on. There's a lot of movies about him.
Dang.
It has 8% on Rotten Tomatoes.
You know what? That's shockingly high.
The movie came out in 2018, so really not that long ago.
No, they really gave it some time to get the lore handled. But you said it's not good, so.
No, it's not. Honestly, I'm sorry. It's just not worth watching. But for me, I kind of thought the talk of Slenderman fizzled out.
Yeah, I think it was one of those things that kind of came and went. It was a meme of its own in that kind of way, and then it fizzled.
Yeah, and it was like an early day meme, like in the very kind of beginnings of creepypasta and all of that.
To me, the first I had heard of it was, remember back in the day when PewDiePie was playing all the spooky games, and he was playing Amnesia, but he also played the Slenderman game, the Pages or whatever, where you're trying to look for him in that woods and it's very creepy and all that stuff. And then I remember, I think I tried to play the game, and my sister's a big fan of horror video games, and we made her play it. And I think she just got so confused that she was like, this isn't scary anymore.
For me, it was scary, and for the record, I do have the newer Slenderman game.
Ooh.
I thought we could maybe play it on stream one day. That would be fun.
Hell yeah,
But here's my thing is, that was creepy back then, but now that I've played games like Outlast and things like that, honestly, after Outlast, it takes a lot to scare me. That game I hold in very high regard.
Oh, yeah.
And I played it on stream over the course of a week and a half.
Just bombing through the game.
Oh, yeah.
No, absolutely not. No.
Horrifying.
I've started that game probably a handful of times, and I get scared and I get frustrated and I quit.
I don't blame you.
So the fact that you finished it is, I would say, a pretty amazing feat on its own.
I finished it with the DLC, and I finished the second one.
Oh my God. The second one's worse, is it not?
Honestly, I think the first one's worse because I just didn't know what I was getting into.
It was very kind of not the first of its kind, but it was certainly very shocking.
Oh, absolutely. It was the first time I saw a penis in a video game.
That is so funny.
Because there's the two guys that they're the first villains you encounter. So I named them the Donger brothers because they're both naked with fish longs.
That is so valid.
But enough about Dongers. Let's talk about Slendy.
Let's talk about Slendy. Before we get into who he is and his history, we do want to talk about the fact that Slendy has a lot of fans. And we don't mean just people who think he's cool or neat. We mean the people who straight up want to bang him.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of fan fiction out there. A lot. It gets pretty steamy.
Well, supposedly he does have the whole tentacle thing going on.
Oh, yeah.
I guess that does it for some people.
People love tentacles.
We originally debated reading some of this fan fiction to you during this episode, but decided to go against it because we don't want to scar you all for life if we don't have to. That said, if you want to go ahead and read it, it's out there. It's accessible. If you got an internet connection and a Google machine,
go hard.
I'm sure you can find it. You go for it.
We do want to give you a mere glimpse into how some people seem to feel about him.
So this next bit is from Reddit user, and I quote, nice_cockroach69.
Because of course it is.
I love that. Go hard. So the subject line reads, Slenderman is actually kind of hot. And they go on to say,
I'm not super sure if this is particularly unpopular, but Slenderman is actually really good looking. And I don't mean that weird tentacle stuff. I mean like the lack of a face is really awakening things in me. He's tall, wears suits, and has a nice figure. Although I would encourage him to go to the gym just to gain some muscle. Like imagine you're dating him and you get really tired. So he carries you in his slender arms. His smile is also so attractive, it just radiates erotic energy.
You just said he doesn't have a face, sir. Or ma'am.
Also, he lives in the woods, which is super cute. Like imagine having a little cottage where you live, eating apples from your forest and picking mushrooms to bring home to your alien man.
I mean, hey, we've said it before. You're allowed to have a fantasy.
Yeah.
You're gonna fit in very well, nice cockroach 69 with the monster fucker crowd, I'm sure.
Oh, absolutely.
It sounds like you just want a nice monster man to live out your little cottagecore life in the forest. I don't think that's what the main idea of Slenderman is,
No.
to be fair. It comes from a very horrific place.
Mhm.
But you do you, boo-boo.
Yeah, sometimes you just want to live in the woods with your tall man.
I can't hold that against you. I don't really understand the whole finding no face attractive
With a nice smile.
with a nice smile. That has me confused, but I mean, I'm sure that is very tame compared to what else is out there.
Big time. Some of it gets just like, whew, it's a lot.
You're like reading it and like all the numbers and angles are like going by and you're like, what is happening here?
Well, you're reading it and you're like, this is just smut.
Well, yeah, I guess.
Clearly, he's captivated folks for a very long time in a lot of different ways. So let's get into Slenderman, who he is and where he came from.
So he's described as a paranormal figure who has been around for centuries, long before people from the internet feared him, wanted him, or both. He is not tied to one place in particular, and stories of Slenderman-like creatures have been reported all around the world.
Scottish people may know similar creatures such as Feardub, the Dark Man. The Dutch share tales of Takenman, the Branch Man, and even the Germans have stories about Der Grossman, the Tall Man.
So we'll get into some of those a little later in the episode.
While his appearance may vary depending on who you ask, certain traits about him have been consistent. For starters, he is described as a male humanoid who is unnaturally tall and skinny with long arms and legs. He is able to extend his arms to great lengths in order to help him catch his prey. So I feel like MGK meets Jack Skellington.
Like Machine Gun Kelly.
Yeah.
Basically the same
Like,
thing.
look at
honestly.
Machine Gun Kelly and then look at Slenderman and tell me you're not seeing it.
I mean, some ladies go hard for the skinny, emo, long-armed, long-legged boys.
There you go.
Not my cup of tea, personally, usually. But hey, if you like a man that can snatch you from half a room away,
That runs without going very far with his legs.
I guess. So on some occasions,
Edit that out. That made no sense.
we'll see tomorrow or for Saturday if I edit it out.
What I meant is I just pictured legs just going really far.
But standing in place?
Yes. I don't know why.
That is some like the OG like spooky scary skeletons.
Yeah,
like,
no, that's literally what I'm picturing.
But Slenderman, guys, if there is an artist out there that wants to draw Slenderman in that like Felix the Cat, like spooky scary skeletons vibes, or if you have already, please show me.
See it.
I want to see this. Anywho,
I was gonna smoke a joint before this episode. Clearly, I did not have
unnecessary.
to. I'm already there.
So, on some occasions, like I mentioned before, he is reported to have 4 to 8 long tentacles that protrude from his back. He's seen it in a black suit and tie. His face is featureless and is usually white or gray. His appearance tends to be similar to the reports of Men in Black. And I'm not talking about Will Smith Men in Black. We're talking about like the Men in Black.
Like Charlotte is wearing a Mothman shirt today, for those of you who can see it. But it reminds me of stories of Indrid Cold.
Yes, or there's also the stories of like the dark-eyed children and stuff like that too. So more of kind of the cryptid variety.
But humanoid still.
Yes.
Slenderman usually occupies spaces such as forests, graveyards, or abandoned properties. He preys on children and teenagers, often luring them towards him only to never be seen or heard from again.
He stalks his prey for months, sometimes years, in order to create a paranoia that will drive them to the brink of insanity. His victims often commit violence towards others and sometimes even themselves.
In some stories, he goes as far as to impale his victims on trees and remove their organs.
At this point, you're probably listening to this and thinking to yourself, this is obviously fake. And you're absolutely right. However, to an undeveloped and easily manipulated mind, this can come across as very real.
I get this. I was a spooky little kid. I was a little weirdo. Yeah. Like, we know this. When I was in elementary, like I'm talking like grade 3 and 4, I thought Bloody Mary was real.
I wasn't sure if she was real, but again, I wasn't going to be in a bathroom in the dark to find out.
I was like the annoying kid at sleepovers that was like, let's all go in the bathroom and play Bloody Mary.
And I was the one that was like, yeah, you guys can do that. And I'm going to stay out here and finish watching Finding Nemo or some shit.
I remember there's this poorly made website about Bloody Mary that my friends and I would go to. This was like back in like Neopets days.
Amazing.
And looking back now, I see it and I'm like, it's fucking stupid.
That was the days of when there was certain sites where it's like you would do like a color blindness test and it would get more difficult and more difficult until it was literally like you couldn't see what it was. And if you tried to answer the question, like a big scary face would pop up and like all those kinds of things. I feel like those have also kind of fizzled to the wind now as well.
They have, because I feel like now kids are harder to scare. But back then that was very much real. And at like 1 a.m. during a sleepover when you're surrounded by your friends and you're all kind of in that spooky mood, like that shit felt real.
Oh yeah, there were many times when it was a sleepover with a bunch of girls and that were like, oh, let's try and do a seance. Well, everyone sit around and hold hands and be stupid basically. But yeah, and I mean, don't get us wrong. We know this is a bit of a cheesy topic, but throughout the episode, we want you to keep in mind that he has found his way out into the true crime world.
The character itself was first seen as a creepypasta, originally created in 2009 by writer Eric Knudsen, aka Victor Surge, but stories of creatures like him date further back.
When he was first introduced, it was through a series of photos in a paranormal Photoshop competition. In these photos, children are seen running away with a tall being behind them, while in others, they are simply just existing, not knowing the terror that lurks behind them. They have captions underneath them, such as,
"We didn't want to go. We didn't want to kill them. But its persistent silence and outstretched arms horrified and comforted us at the same time. 1983, photographer unknown, presumed dead."
Ooh, another one says,
"One of 2 recovered photographs from the Sterling City Library blaze, notable for being taken the day which 14 children vanished and for what is referred to as the Slender Man. Deformities cited as film defects by officials. Fire at library occurred 1 week later. Actual photograph confiscated as evidence. 1986. Photographer Mary Thomas, missing since June 13th, 1986.
This was enough to plant a seed that would eventually grow into a worldwide phenomena.
According to the myth, the earliest reference to a Slender Man-like creature takes us to the Serra de Capivara National Park in Brazil, where cave paintings were discovered. In these paintings, a tall character is seen leading a child away.
This sounds creepy, of course. However, by all accounts, these paintings have been proven to be fake.
That might be different than what other podcasts are saying, because I did listen to a few podcasts about Slender Man, watch some documentaries, and they all bring up these cave paintings.
Okay.
There is zero proof that the cave paintings, there are cave paintings, but these specific ones are real. So I don't want to say that they exist, because they probably don't.
Got it. The next example is from the lower part of Egypt. Hieroglyphs from around 3100 BC were supposedly found in Pharaoh Wasner's tomb. Not much is known about him, but he did exist. During his time, a known thief is rumored to have had encounters with a strange figure with multiple limbs.
These two examples leave a lot of unanswered questions, mostly about whether or not they are legitimate. However, the next one has an air of truth to it, mostly because it's about someone who was a real person.
So Hans Lutzelberger, also known as Hans Frank, was a German block cutter who was active in the early 1500s. He was known for his intricate woodworking skills that depicted famous battles of the time.
It is rumored that some of his work contained a strange, tall creature known to the Germans as the Tall Man. Stories like this likely existed during this time, but they're likely attributed to characters such as another child-stealing man that we talked about, the Pied Piper.
That's still to this day one of our more popular episodes, and that shocked me a little bit.
I never saw that coming.
You guys really liked the Pied Piper one.
I know when we talked about doing the Pied Piper, which you should listen to, because it was fun. It was interesting. We kind of did it as a little bit of like a palate cleanser.
Yeah, and I like the folklore-y ones.
Me too. I really, really do. And it was fun. It's a neat story.
It was a good one. So the Tall Man appears to be a cautionary tale for children created to show them that if they were to disobey their parents and go off into the woods, they may never be seen again. In other versions of the story, he would tap on the windows of children late at night. If they hadn't gone to bed like their parents wanted, he would open the window and steal them away.
Now, of course, these are not specific stories of Slenderman. However, they do show that throughout time, civilization has feared the idea of a tall humanoid ready to steal away their children. This may cause one to wonder why so many groups of people far from each other have shared these same fears despite never meeting throughout time.
Slenderman has also been compared to the idea of a tulpa. This is a concept rooted in Tibetan Buddhism that has been talked about in modern psychology. A tulpa is a type of mental construct that through focus takes on its own form and consciousness. These are sometimes created as a form of companionship. That just sounds like a very intense imaginary friend.
I'm so glad that you said that, because when I was researching tulpas for this episode, there are so many articles that are like the difference between,
and I don't mean to be disrespectful if it's like a very, very like spiritual thing.
Oh, for sure.
That's just like what it seems to be.
It's basically a being that you create through focus that has its own needs and wants, and it is self-functioning, and it's like a conscious being that doesn't exist.
Interesting. I know a lot of kids have imaginary friends, and that's totally normal. Like many kids, I would say most kids probably do. I never did, because I could never make myself believe in an imaginary friend, because I'm like, no, I'm making it up.
Oh girl, I totally did. He was an alien. I'm not even joking.
Did he have a name?
Martin
the Martian.
I'm serious. I'm like and I think I may have had another one that was like, because my mom tells me all these stories about like me when I was like, especially when we lived in Slovenia, when I was like, 2 to 5, and like just weird shit that I would say.
Mean, kids say some wacky ass shit anyway.
But I'd be like saying I'm like playing with the old woman and like things like that. And meanwhile, my mom is just like, we just escaped a war. Now this kid's gone crazy. Like, fuck my life.
I mean, hey, your brain is a wild and wacky thing. But yeah, I could never. My friends, like some of my friends in like school would be like, oh yeah, like this is Patricia. And I'm like, there's nothing there.
You're like the reasonable. We're totally polar opposites when it comes to that though. Because I'm just like, sure, what up, Patricia?
I think there was probably a part of me that was quite jealous, because I was like, no, I just can't believe it. Like I can't will an imaginary friend to just be there. I can't picture them. I don't know what to call them. I was like, no, I don't believe it.
You know what I wonder if the difference is that I was an only child and you were not.
That's a very good point. Although my sister, however, she won't thank me for telling you guys this. I know this is off on a tangent, but you know what? Slenderman is more of a concept anyway. My sister used to either, if she was naughty, she would either blame things on Granddad, who is a real person, by the way, or she would blame things on Big Ted's, who is her big teddy bear that she still has to this day. Once upon a time, she took like wax crayons and went down all our hallway in the UK and just like scribbled. And when my mom came out and was like, Katie, she went, no, Granddad did it. Granddad was in holiday in Spain. So, you know, probably not. Or yeah,
so
think Ted's did it.
Now, with tulpas,
Yes.
it's one of those concepts that's kind of been butchered by the current internet.
Cannibalized.
Very much so, because in recent times, the theory has found its place on the internet with self-proclaimed tulpamancers.
Oh.
And they, on some occasions, strive to bring fictional creatures to life, often to date them.
Classic. This seems to be very, very far from the spiritual origins.
Very much so.
So, since Slendy's internet debut in 2009, numerous writers have taken the opportunity to write their versions of the Slenderman story.
As these tales grew, more and more people began to believe that he was real, often posting their quote-unquote experiences with him.
I wonder what it is about the human subconscious that sees something like tall and lanky and is like, oh, we don't like that creepy motherfucker.
Right? I mean, to me, that makes me wonder, like, what in our past
Yeah,
led
they
us to
often
that.
say things like uncanny valley.
Mhm.
It's like an instinctual reaction to something.
But something about this and the concept of him being real that I kind of found is, again, it's a lot of like younger kids, often girls, especially teenage girls. And it's more of a sense of belonging. It's everyone saying it. Okay, I'll say it too. It's people that are the
Okay.
opposite of kids like you were.
I guess.
It's kids like me.
that are like, yeah, I'm on board with this.
I'm like, oh, great, sure.
But you know what? I think as much as it is like a horror concept, it's a very creative concept. And
It is.
has created this entire world. And kind of because so many people seem to relate to it globally, and we have sort of the history in Germany and, you know, all over the place, I think it's something that a lot of people can relate to and kind of expand upon the story in their way as well.
Yes, especially throughout online communities, because suddenly I have a story. You're going to hear this story. It's going to lend me quote unquote credibility. And now we have something in common. And I have this whole community of people that believe me and will listen to me. And maybe people who are doing that don't necessarily have that otherwise.
That's very true. This is when people began identifying as Slenderman followers, and usually young kids would see him as this sort of boogeyman who had proxies to do his bidding. Oftentimes, this was a fun game created by vivid imaginations, but many did believe that he was real.
According to the myth, proxies are mind-controlled humans whose entire personality and memories have been wiped away. They exist only to serve Slenderman and live with him in his mansion in the woods. Once they are done serving their purpose, they are destroyed.
They even have their own ranking system, which goes as follows.
And I got this from the Slenderman website where they do post this kind of stuff.
Okay.
So number 1 in the ranking is hallowed, mindless puppets created by Slenderman for the harassment of runners with no other purpose. Number 2, berserkers.
Ooh, I don't like that.
Most closely resembling the traditional perception of proxies, slave to the Slenderman, but with enough of their own will left to have superior problem-solving skills and tactics. Then we have the sleepers. They have their original personalities kept intact and are left unaware of their status of proxies.
Oh, so it could happen at any time.
It could. Then we have agents, not proxies in the traditional sense. Agents appear to be the blogosphere's interpretation of cultists. And finally, we have the revenants, proxies with super strength and regenerative abilities granted to them by Slenderman. They eventually became unpopular with bloggers and were retconned away as hallucinations.
They're like, nah, you're too OP. You're getting nerfed.
Right? Yeah, exactly. We believe everyone, but we don't believe you.
Yeah, no, you can go away.
And this is intense shit.
It is. I mean, again, they've opened up this whole sort of literary world, basically.
And it is, again, we're not acting like we believe this is real. I want to just keep saying that.
No.
There was one post, because it's these like old chat rooms, right?
Oh, yeah.
And there was this post from like 2015 that was like, I think my mother's a proxy and here's why. I'm like, leave your mom out of this.
Oh no, that's about to spiral out of control.
Right? Now, once again, to a undeveloped young mind, this may come off as not only real, but like I mentioned, very appealing.
Very convincing. You know, when there's that much of a backstory, it's like, wow, you got all the information.
You can't make it up. This has to be real. You've written so many words down.
Exactly. This was seen in its most extreme form on May 31st, 2014, when Anissa Weier and Morgan Geyser stabbed their best friend, Peyton Lautner, 19 times, claiming that they did it in order to earn their place at Slenderman's side so they could live in his mansion. All three girls were only 12 years old.
And this was a brutal crime.
Pretty horrific.
Yeah. And that's where we'll pick things up next week with the story of the Slenderman stabbing and Peyton's shocking story of survival.
Mm-hmm.
This is different than what we usually do. We know this.
Mm-hmm. I feel, you know what, guys? I will give you a warning now. This has been very lighthearted in comparison to the case that we're going to be covering next week.
Oh, next week is horrifying.
So sorry for the emotional whiplash there.
Yeah, it's what we do. You love it. For me, it felt like it was important to paint an image of the creature that led to the crime that we're going to talk about next week. And honestly, the story of Slenderman, it's kind of fun.
It is fun. And I think, like you say, it's important to sort of cover the story, the history, the lore, if you will, before we jump into the case. Because if we cover the case and you have no idea what Slenderman is, you're going to be very kind of confused as to what happens. And I mean, what happens is still very shocking and out of pocket and uncalled for, definitely. But without this kind of previous context, I think you would be even more out of the loop, so to speak.
Yeah, because I mean, this story really shows in a lot of ways the dangers of the internet to a young mind that is easily persuaded.
Yeah, and when you said something earlier about kids these days would maybe not fall for something quite as much as this, I also think with social media, like sort of really being in the first 5 years of its life, you know, and I know that's not exactly accurate. I got Facebook in 2009. So in my mind, that's kind of the beginning of social media for me. Like I wasn't on MySpace and stuff like that. This crime that we're going to be talking about happened in 2014. So kind of, like I say, 5 years into the internet as we kind of know it today, if you will, with the Redditors and the Tumblr blogs and all that stuff. Yeah, it's pretty shocking.
And yes, before any of you ask, we will absolutely be discussing the actual psychology behind the crime, as well as the arguments for and against the mental states of Anissa and Morgan. Because clearly, 12 years old stabbing their friend 19 times. Something's up.
Yeah, that's a lot.
So with that being said, Charlotte, do you have anything else that you would like to add, or shall we continue this back up next week? Which again, Charlotte mentioned, like, it's a rough case next week. This is really kind of easy listening compared to what we're going to talk about because it gets rough.
Yeah. And I mean, for those of you who are listening, I feel like you've probably heard of the Slenderman story. If you haven't, feel free to look it up. I mean, there's, like Dina said, there's tons of art out there. I mean, it's the original very kickoff as for Slenderman as we knew it. Started with a Photoshop contest.
Yeah.
So go check that out. They're still out there on Reddit. You can Google it. But yeah, we'll save everything else for next week.
Speaking of things that are coming up that I'm excited about. Ooh, it's happening.
Twitch.
Sunday, September 15th, the day after this episode airs, Charlotte and I will be on Twitch at 2 p.m. MST, twitch.tv/thegrimcurriculum. I can't wait.
Me either. We have a few things already. I think we're going to do some reactions. We may be playing some games. And yeah, just having a fun little chat with you guys as well.
It's going to be a good time.
Sunday fun.
Join us. And yeah, it's going to be a new adventure for us. It's going to be great.
Twitch TV/The Grim Curriculum.
Yeah.
And I mean, you can Google us. I'm pretty sure everything and anything comes up. Or, you know what? If you're really struggling, just DM us on the socials.
We will help
We'll send you the right place.
But shoot us a follow before the stream.
Yeah.
I personally, you know, I want us to hit affiliate as soon as we can.
I would love that.
Because again, any funds that we make just help the podcast grow. We'd like to invest in some new camera equipment at some point. That's kind of the next thing on our list.
Yeah.
And it's going to be great.
Yeah. Show up. Be there. Be square.
Or else Slendy's going to get you.
Yeah, I'll make a phone call.
Or he won't, depending on how you feel about this.
I guess so.
If you don't watch our stream, Slenderman won't come into your room at night.
Forward this to 7 friends, otherwise you'll die in the next 7 days. Remember those good old days?
Oh, I
my
do.
God. Anywho, we are at the point in the episode where we, of course, give a big shout out to our Grim VIPs over on Patreon. If you're not on our Patreon, what are you doing?
Get it together.
There's a free tier, so even if you don't feel like chucking any money our way, you can hang out. Dina does episode reveals every week, and they're only on Patreon. We don't reveal that shit anywhere else.
Yeah, and you can actually get a week-long free trial of the paid tiers. So even if you don't want to pay, you can watch videos for like a week, because we do video versions of all the episodes. We do a Discord. There's lots of great stuff, and as time goes on, we're going to keep adding to it. But with that being said, we want to say a very special thank you to our Grim VIPs and up. Thank you to Mayhem Mudkip, Steven Centauri, Lisa, Nova, Kevinus Musicus, Judy, Hillary, Brian, Bob, and Atlantean Jedi.
Thank you. You guys are the titty city, the bee's knees, and you are not a medium pepperoni, you are a large pepperoni.
The largest of pepperonis, baby. And you're spicy.
Yes, spicy. Quick last reminder, Grim Encounters, send us your stories. Alien encounters, true crime encounters, just spooky experiences you've had. Have you been haunted? Have you been in a haunted house? We'd love to hear about it.
Do you have a creepy neighbor? Did you see a scary guy one time? Did you see Slenderman?
Were you creepy one time?
Oh, I like that. Yeah, let's do it. I was the Slenderman.
Wouldn't that be a twist? Exclusive Grim Curriculum interview with the Slenderman. And then he's going to take us away to the mansion.
I mean, in today's housing economy.
Hey, you know what? I talk with my friends all the time about buying just one giant house and a plot of land and starting a commune.
There you go. 'Tis the dream, isn't it?
Slenderman, save us. JK, please don't.
Thank you all for listening. This has been the Grim Curriculum. Due to fresh drinking water being so scarce on the Galapagos Islands, some bird species, such as the Galapagos hawk, have adapted by drinking the blood of other animals.
Vampire hawks.
Caw-caw.
Bye.
Bye.